Welcome, listeners. I'm Silas, your sleepy storyteller, pulling you down the rabbit hole of time, where dreams and memories intertwine. If you enjoy these videos, please tap the like button. It really helps. Also, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can keep drifting along on your sleepy journey through history. And before we wander down the rabbit hole, share your city and time in the comments. I love imagining our journey threading through every ticking clock. Now, take a moment to find a comfortable resting position. Close your eyes gently, and in your own time, allow yourself to sink into the quiet atmosphere of the past as we begin our slow journey together. The fog comes first. It rolls in from the harbor in thick, suffocating sheets, carrying with it the tang of salt, tar, and rotting seaweed. Lanterns swing along the pier, but their light only blurs into faint halos, swallowed whole by the mist. The air is damp enough to cling to my skin, to dampen the fabric of my coat, to creep into my lungs like a weight. Each breath feels heavier, as though even the air of Salem has grown wary of itself. I pause at the edge of the dock, boots pressing into the worn timbers. Beneath me, the water laps sluggishly against the pilings, a sound muted by fog until it feels more imagined than heard. The ships moored here sway uneasily, their masts creaking like the bones of some vast, skeletal creature. Ropes groan, sails rustle, though there is no wind, and faint footsteps echo on planks I cannot see, and then voices, whispers carried in fragments. She consorted with the devil. Seen at night, marked, cursed. The words come sharp, then vanish into the fog. Sailors hunched over barrels murmur to one another, their faces half hidden in shadow. Their eyes dart nervously toward the town rising beyond the harbor, as if the earth itself might accuse them should they speak too boldly. Salem's dock should be alive with bustle. Merchants tallying goods, fishermen hauling nets, children running errands. But in 1692, it lies smothered beneath silence. Even here, at the threshold of the sea, suspicion rules. Every step forward feels like a trespass. I walk slowly along the planks, my hand brushing rough wood slick with salt. A sailor passes me, his face obscured by a wide-brimmed hat. He does not nod, does not greet, does not even meet my eyes. Instead, he grips a rosary in his calloused hands, lips moving silently over prayers that spill into the damp air. His boots clatter hurriedly on the dock, carrying him away before the fog can catch his name. Two others crouch near a pile of barrels, voices low but urgent. One glances over his shoulder at me, suspicion etched in the whites of his eyes, before bending back to whisper to his companion. I catch only fragments: witch, trial, confessed, and then a name, spoken like a curse. Their words twist the air tighter, coiling around my chest like a rope. It is here, among the ropes and nets and creaking hulls, that Salem's fear breathes first into me. This is not the fear of storm or sea. Sailors know those dangers, can brace against them with hands and sails. This is a fear without shape, without anchor. a fear that any word, any glance, any misstep might drag you beneath the tide of suspicion. From the docks, I follow the worn track that winds inland, Gallows Hill Road. The name itself hangs heavy, though in this moment it is not yet the site of execution. It is, instead, the artery through which rumor courses into town. Every traveler, every cart, every weary pilgrim carries with them whispers that spread faster than fire. The road is lined with rutted earth, its stones slick from morning dew. My boots press into the mud with soft, sucking sounds. Along the edges, cottages crouch low, their thatched roofs sagging under dampness. Curtains twitch as I pass. Shadows linger in doorways, watching, waiting. No greetings rise. No children run out to play. A woman clutches her shawl tighter around her shoulders as I approach, pulling her child close. Her eyes lock on me, wide and unblinking, until I move past. Then I hear her voice, hushed but sharp. "Stranger, best not speak with him." Another voice murmurs in agreement. My back prickles with the weight of their stares. Further along, two men pass each other on the road. Neither smiles, neither greets. Instead, they exchange curt nods, their eyes narrowing with unspoken accusation. Their shoulders brush as they pass, but they do not slow. Each keeps walking, glancing back only once, suspicion tethering them even as they move apart. It is here that I feel the first true chill, not from the air, but from the people. Salem is a town locked against itself. Its heart beats not with life, but with paranoia. The fog thins as I climb higher, though it does not lift. It clings stubbornly to the ground, curling around stones and fence posts, as though reluctant to release the town from its grip. My footsteps echo strangely, louder than they should, as if the silence has grown hungry enough to swallow sound itself. I pause at a bend in the road, where the land dips into a shallow hollow. Voices rise from somewhere within the mist. I cannot see them, but I hear their tone, sharp, bitter, trembling with anger. One voice accuses, the other denies. Then both voices escalate, overlapping in a torrent of recriminations until they break into silence. Only the fog answers back, thick and blank, as though sealing their words into the earth. This is Salem now, a place where neighbors wield suspicion like a blade, where silence is safer than greeting, and where every whispered word might birth another accusation. At last, the road bends upward toward the heart of town. The faint silhouette of Gallows Hill looms beyond, though it is only a shadow in the fog. My steps grow slower, heavier. It feels as though the earth itself resists, pressing against my soles, warning me of what lies ahead. Here, even the air tastes different, bitter, metallic, like iron and ash. My throat tightens as I breathe, and I cannot shake the thought that I'm already inhaling the whispers of those condemned. The sound of a bell tolls faintly from the meeting house ahead. Its iron voice rolls through the fog, slow and mournful, as though each strike is a nail in an unseen coffin. The bell echoes across Gallows Hill Road, across the silent cottages, across the shuttered windows. It is not a summons, it is a warning. And yet, I continue forward. As I walk, I cannot help but reflect on what this town has become. Salem was once a place of trade, of ships and markets, of Puritan families striving to carve life from wilderness. Now, it is a town devouring itself. Fear has rotted its core, spreading outward until even the docks, where the world should feel broad and open, have narrowed into suspicion and whispers. Here, a simple greeting might betray you. Here, silence may save you or damn you. Every face carries both dread and defiance. Every voice trembles between prayer and accusation. The fog thickens again, coiling tighter, until even my own breath feels borrowed. I look ahead, toward the shadow of the meeting house rising from the mist, where sermons thunder and accusations find holy fuel, and I know this is only the beginning. The bell tolls again. Its sound rolls over the rooftops of Salem like a hammer striking an anvil, calling the faithful toward the meeting house. The fog still clings to the ground, though now thinned by the rising sun. Pale light cuts through narrow lanes, throwing long shadows that stretch and waver across clapboard houses. Doors creak open, and figures emerge. Mothers in woolen shawls, men with worn hats pulled low, children trailing close behind. No one speaks above a whisper. The bell itself feels less like a summons to worship and more like the opening note of judgment. I follow the slow procession toward the meeting house. Its wooden walls rise stark against the mist, plain and severe, without ornament to soften its edges. Puritan austerity is etched into every beam, every shutter, every stone foundation. Yet for all its simplicity, the place radiates a terrible weight. Here, sermons thunder about sin and salvation, but in 1692, the words have grown darker, sharper, wielded like blades against the neighbors sitting shoulder to shoulder. The door groans open, and the congregation flows inside. The air grows thick with the mingled scent of smoke, damp wool, and nervous sweat. Wooden benches creak under the press of bodies. Eyes dart from face to face, each worshiper gauging who listens most intently, who fidgets, who seems ill at ease. In Salem now, faith has become theater, and every gesture is a performance meant to shield one from suspicion. At the pulpit, the minister's voice booms. His words are not balm, but fire. He speaks of Satan loosed among them, of witches in their very midst, of spectral hands reaching into homes and barns to choke, scratch, and tempt the godly into ruin. Each syllable falls heavy, sending ripples of dread through the pews. Heads bow lower. Mothers clutch their children tighter. Men shift uneasily, eyes flicking toward neighbors with whom they once shared tools, meals, or land boundaries. Every phrase from the pulpit fans suspicion. What was once a house of prayer is now an arena where fear is sanctified, baptized in Scripture and unleashed upon the town. From the back corner, a sound breaks the solemnity. A sharp cry, sudden and shrill. A girl, no more than 14, collapses to the floor. Her limbs thrash. Her back arches unnaturally. Her voice splits into gasping screams. The congregation surges to its feet, benches scraping the floor. All eyes fix on her writhing form, terror mirrored in their pale faces. Before the minister can even respond, another girl nearby begins to tremble violently, clutching at her throat as if invisible fingers coil around her neck. She shrieks, clawing at the air, eyes rolling until only the whites show. The sound is unearthly, half scream, half wail, and it infects the room like a contagion. 2 more girls fall next, their bodies convulsing, their voices babbling in incoherent cries. They claw at the ground, at their own hair, at unseen tormentors. The frenzy builds into a storm of sound, shrieks, sobs, prayers shouted in panic. Mothers rush forward to hold their daughters. Fathers stumble back in horror, and the minister bellows prayers that vanish in the chaos. It is hysteria born in an instant, yet it spreads with the force of wildfire. I slip out into the cold air, the shouts of the meeting house ringing in my ears. The crowd spills onto the road, voices colliding in frantic speculation. The devil has them. Witches in the village. It is a sign. Their words tumble over each other, weaving a tapestry of panic that clings to the very air. The road bends toward the parsonage, the home of Reverend Samuel Paris. Its simple wooden frame leans slightly, as though strained by the weight of what festers within. It was here, they say, that the first fits broke out weeks before. Here, in the flickering light of the hearth, the afflicted girls twisted and shrieked, their eyes wide with terror, their voices naming witches in the night. As I near, I swear I can hear it still. Phantom cries that leak through the timbers, echoes of those first convulsions that seeded Salem's undoing. The house seems to exhale dread with every draft. Windows gape like watching eyes, and the doorframe groans though no one passes through. Neighbors cluster outside, whispering feverishly. One woman swears she saw a girl levitate. Another insists she heard voices speaking in tongues. A man crosses himself 3 times, his lips moving in prayer, as though the gesture alone could guard him from contagion. All of them glance nervously at the parsonage, as though the devil himself peers from its windows. I watch, unseen, as a mother leads her child toward the door. The girl's face is pale, her eyes wide. She clutches her mother's hand desperately, but already I see the tremors in her frame, the twitch of her lips. She is afraid, not of witches, but of what fear itself demands of her. From the parsonage, the road widens into the town green. It should be a place of gathering, a space for markets and meetings, but now it is a stage for spectacle. The crowd gathers here too, buzzing with the aftermath of the girl's fits. Fear ripples outward, searching for a vessel, a scapegoat, and soon it finds one. A woman is dragged into view, her wrists bound with rope. She stumbles as 2 men shove her forward, her face pale beneath the grime of tears. The crowd erupts, not in pity, but in jeers. Fingers point. Voices hurl accusations. Witch! Devil's whore! Confess! Confess! Children laugh cruelly, throwing clumps of mud that strike her dress. Men spit as she passes, their saliva streaking her cheeks. A woman lifts her apron to shield her child's eyes, yet does not move to help. No one helps. To aid her would be to risk sharing her fate. The accused staggers forward, her eyes darting from face to face. She pleads, not for mercy, but for recognition. You know me. I am your neighbor. I tended your sick. I nursed your child. But her words are drowned in the roar of contempt. The rope around her wrists pulls tighter as she is dragged down the lane. She stumbles again, falling to her knees. Dirt cakes her palms as she pushes herself up. Spit strikes her hair. Stones clatter at her feet. Her humiliation is complete. Her humanity stripped away, not by evidence or trial, but by fear, weaponized into spectacle. I stand at the edge of the crowd, unseen, yet overwhelmed. The girl's shrieks still echo in my ears, their frenzy replaying behind my eyes. The woman's cries for recognition haunt the air, already fading beneath the jeers of her neighbors. Salem is no longer a town. It is a stage, and every soul within it has been cast into a role: accuser, accused, judge, or spectator. Here, fear masquerades as faith. Here, sermons sanctify suspicion. Here, hysteria births humiliation, and the crowd drinks it in as proof of righteousness. I turn away, my steps heavy on the road that winds deeper into Salem. The parsonage looms behind me, a cradle of madness. The meeting house bell tolls again, its iron voice sealing the moment as history. Ahead, more shadows wait: jails, taverns, cemeteries, and always the whispers, thick as fog, warning that the rope or the stone may find its next victim in anyone, even in me. The village green stretches before me like a stage, but the actors who fill it are no longer performers of festival or fair. They are neighbors, bound together by soil and faith, yet torn apart by suspicion and fear. The green is where Salem's fractures are most visible, lines of distrust carved deeper with each accusation, each whispered rumor. The mist of mourning clings to the ground, curling around boots and hems, turning the ordinary into the eerie. From the edges of the green, I hear voices rise, sharper than the toll of any bell. At the center, two men stand nose to nose. Their shouts pierce the air like hammer blows. One is gaunt and wiry, his eyes burning with resentment. The other, broader, red-faced, arms folded across his chest in stubborn defiance. Between them lies nothing but dirt. Yet that dirt has become a battlefield, a disputed strip of pasture that neither will yield. "You've let your cattle graze on my land again," the wiry man spits, his words trembling with rage. "Your land," the broad man roars back, jabbing a thick finger toward the crowd. "That pasture has belonged to my family since before your father was born. You steal and lie, and now you dare call it yours?" The crowd presses tighter, drawn not by the land itself, but by the scent of accusation that hangs in the air. Old quarrels in Salem have learned new tricks. Disputes are no longer about boundaries or fences. They end with whispers of witchcraft. The wiry man lowers his voice, but loud enough to cut into every ear. "I've seen you at night, digging where no crops grow, whispering where no man should. Who do you call to in the dark, neighbor? Who helps your fields prosper while others fail?" The words fall like a spark into dry tinder. Gasps ripple outward, the circle of neighbors shifting, muttering. Fear flares in their eyes. The broad man's face slackens, not from guilt, but from the realization that denial will mean nothing. "No," he stammers. "No, I am no." But his words falter under the rising chorus. "A witch! A servant of the devil!" The frenzy ignites, fast and merciless. As I stand at the edge of the circle, my mind returns to what I witnessed earlier. I think of the jail, the two neighbors pressed against opposite walls, each hurling accusations at the other in desperation, their voices hoarse with rage and fear. One man had accused the other of witchcraft to save himself, only to find himself shackled moments later. Both had damned themselves by their tongues. I remember, too, the woman, the nurse whose hands once delivered life, dragged through the streets and mocked until spit and dirt stained her face. Her crime was nothing more than standing in the wrong place, at the wrong time, with neighbors too eager to shift their gaze away from themselves. Here, on the green, I see the same pattern repeating. Old grudges and petty feuds wear the mask of righteousness. The accused man's fate is already sealed, not by evidence, but by envy. In Salem, survival no longer depends on piety or honesty, but on who can strike first with the poison of suspicion. The crowd's chant swells, swallowing the man whole. Salem has no ears for pleas of innocence. I turn from the green, the accusation still echoing, and make my way to Ingersoll's Tavern. Its timbers groan with age, its doorway sagging beneath the weight of countless feet. The tavern, once a haven for warmth and ale, has been twisted into something else entirely. Now it is a place of judgment, an antechamber to damnation. Inside, the air is heavy, thick with sweat, smoke, and the sour tang of fear. Lantern light flickers against the walls, shadows trembling like nervous hands. The benches are crowded with townsfolk, their eyes sharp, their whispers cutting through the air like knives. At the center stands a rough-hewn table. Upon it rests a single lantern, its glow pooling across the wood like stagnant water. The tavern's hum hushes as the door bursts open. Two men shove a woman inside, her wrists bound, her face pale. Her hair hangs wild about her shoulders, strands clinging to damp cheeks. She stumbles, catching herself before the crowd's eager eyes. "Witch!" someone hisses, and the word seems to curl along the beams like smoke. They force her onto the chair. A man steps forward, his expression gaunt, his voice filled with fervor as he declares that her body must be searched for the devil's mark. A mole, a scar, any blemish, proof of her pact with Satan. The woman trembles. "No! Please, I am innocent. I have done no wrong." Her cries are smothered by jeers. Hands seize her arms, wrenching them upward. Sleeves tear with the sound of cloth betraying its owner. Pale skin gleams under the lantern's light, and the crowd leans in, breath held, fingers prod at her flesh. Eyes scour every inch. Each freckle draws mutters. Each birthmark elicits gasps. One man insists the mark is hidden, that the devil conceals his work where eyes seldom wander. Rough hands tilt her head, pulling back her hair, searching behind her ears, at the nape of her neck. The lantern's glow burns hot upon her trembling skin, and yet there is nothing. No scar, no mole, no blemish that will damn her. Only the ordinary marks of a woman's life. Frustration ripples through the crowd. Some mutter that the devil's trickery is too clever. Others shift uneasily, as though ashamed to admit disappointment at her innocence. Then a voice speaks, firm and low. She bears no mark. The room exhales, the tension slackening but not releasing. The men step back, loosening their hold on her arms. She gasps, pressing her torn sleeves to her body, her eyes wide with terror. For a heartbeat, silence reigns. Then the crowd parts. Someone spits. Another shakes their head. And then, miraculously, she is released. Her feet stumble against the floorboards. But she does not pause. She flees, darting through the tavern door into the mist of night, her ragged breath fading into the distance. I stay rooted, chest tight, while the last of the crowd untangles itself from the green. One woman has slipped free of Salem's teeth for tonight, but her liberty tastes of ash, not mercy, but the flimsy accident of an unmarked skin. She walks away because her body refused the proof the town hungered for. Tomorrow, a new eye might find what this one did not. And then no luck, no mercy, no absence of blemish will save her. People drift off in low, urgent talk. The tavern timbers groan as bodies shift inside, the air inside gone sour with sweat and stale ale. I draw a long breath under the cold sky and find nothing in it but the echo of accusations. Behind me, the tavern hums with renewed verdicts. Ahead, the green still thrums like a trapped thing, waiting to snap. My mind returns to the nurse who was shorn of dignity in the square, to the men on the lane whose boundary quarrel curdled into a charge of witchcraft. One neighbor's grievance turned into another's indictment. Tonight, a parcel of land. Tomorrow, a life. An old argument becomes a noose. A petty dispute becomes evidence. A town's private grudges transmute into public execution. Salem is not kept awake by witches. It is kept awake by its own mirrors. As I move away, the weight of those watching presses at my back. Eyes track my steps, whispering, measuring, waiting, and for a long moment, I imagine their next word will be my name. The night presses heavier as I make my way toward the old burying point cemetery, where crooked stones claw their way out of the earth like fingers frozen in anguish. The moon hangs pale above, its light fractured by mist and skeletal branches. Here, the dead lean closer than the living, their names etched in lichen and shadow, their legacies not of peace but of judgment. Salem feels tighter here, as if the town itself is holding its breath, waiting for the soil to speak. The air is thick with damp earth and rot, the scent of decay mingling with the bitter tang of autumn leaves. My steps crunch against the brittle carpet of oak and ash, and each sound feels like an intrusion, as though the dead themselves resent my trespass. The stones tilt at odd angles, toppled by time and neglect, yet each bears a name sharp enough to cut the night. Some belong to judges, men who thundered from pulpits and benches, whose words bound neighbors' necks with invisible rope. Others are accusers, women who cried out in the meeting house, their testimonies louder than reason, their whispers stronger than evidence. Now they are all equal, the righteous and the condemned sharing the same shallow soil. I pause at one slab, its surface pocked with moss. The inscription is almost gone, but the faint letters spell out the name of a man who once passed judgment with absolute certainty. My breath clouds in the cold, and for a moment, I think I hear his voice, distant, hollow, a verdict still echoing beyond the grave. Another stone leans beside it, bearing the name of a woman who swore her neighbor's guilt with trembling lips. Death has equalized them, binding accuser and accused alike beneath the same earth they once poisoned with fear. The ground feels unsteady underfoot, soft as though the graves themselves are unsettled. Salem's soil cannot decide whether to hold its secrets or spit them back into the night. Each stone seems to murmur its own warning. Judgment once rendered does not stay buried. I leave the cemetery's iron gates behind, their hinges groaning like a protest, and drift toward the jail that squats nearby. Its heavy walls loom like a fortress of despair, thick stone slick with condensation, iron bars blackened and rusted with misery. If the graveyard was silent, here the air trembles with noise, the raw, desperate cries of the living who wait for their turn to join the dead. Chains rattle in the darkness. Groans rise and fall like waves against stone. A single lantern sputters within, its dim light casting restless shadows across damp walls. I peer through a narrow slit, the yellow glow brushing against faces pressed to the bars. Hollow eyes stare back, wide with terror, ringed with fever. Hands reach through the iron, clawing for air, for salvation, for anything beyond this cell. The stench is almost unbearable. Sweat, sickness, and the sharp, metallic sting of despair. It clings to the night, coating my throat until I taste their hopelessness. Then, above the cacophony, two voices rise sharp and jagged. "You damned me with your tongue," one man hisses, his voice raw, cracking with rage. "And you damned me," the other spits back, his fist slamming the bars. "You thought your lies would save you, but now you rot with me." Their venom fills the air. Two men caught in the same trap of their own making. They are mirrors, each reflecting the other's desperation, each destroyed by suspicion they themselves unleashed. Their feud began in whispers, now it ends in fetid silence. Both chained, both condemned, neither spared by the accusations they once thought a shield. I step back, the iron door rattling faintly as I do. The echoes of their voices gnaw at me, burrowing deep. Salem does not simply accuse, it devours. Neighbors consume neighbors, feeding on one another, until nothing remains but bones and regret. Near the jail, in a vacant field, a crowd gathers under lantern light. Their flames waver in the mist, bobbing like malignant fireflies. The air is tense, bristling with hunger for spectacle. I edge closer, my boots sinking into damp earth, and see him, an elderly man, stretched upon the ground, wrists bound, his body frail yet unbroken. Across his chest lies a wide plank of wood, its surface rough and splintered. A single stone rests upon it, heavy, jagged, indifferent. The man's chest rises shallowly beneath the weight, but his eyes remain fierce, refusing to yield. A figure of authority raises a hand, and another stone is dragged forward. It lands with a thud that shakes the air, pressing deeper into ribs that creak under the burden. The old man groans, a guttural sound that vibrates the night, his lungs fighting for air. Still, he does not speak. "Confess," someone whispers in the crowd. "Confess and be spared." But the man does not confess. Another stone follows, and another. Each thud is a drumbeat of cruelty. Each groan is a hymn of defiance. His silence is not weakness, but weapon. His last act of resistance, a refusal to grant Salem the satisfaction of his voice. The crowd shifts uneasily. Mothers clutch their children tighter. Some whisper prayers. Others lean forward, eyes gleaming with grim fascination. A boy hides his face in his mother's skirts. She does not look away. None of them do. Another stone lands. The man gasps, his chest flattening, his ribs bowing inward. His groans rise one last time. Not a plea, but a howl of defiance. A sound that shakes the marrow of all who hear it. Then silence. Not peace, but silence heavy with the knowledge that Salem has ended another of its own. The crowd disperses slowly, their lanterns dimming as they retreat, some muttering prayers, others drifting away wordless. I remain rooted, breath shallow, chest aching as if the stones had pressed upon me too. The field smells of sweat and damp earth, and something deeper, shame. The cemetery, the jail, the pressing, they are all the same face of death. Above ground, beneath stone, or behind bars, the result is unchanged. Salem's people are being ground into dust, and no one is safe. Not the accused, not the accuser, not the silent. The town has turned inward, feeding on itself with the inevitability of fire consuming dry wood. I close my eyes, but the sounds do not fade. I still hear chains rattling, the bitter accusations of neighbors, the groans of the crushed. The earth beneath my boots feels alive, heavy, suffocating, as though Salem itself is sinking under the weight of its sins. I walk away slowly, lanterns flickering ahead of me, shadows stretching like claws across the ground. Salem is no longer merely a town. It is a grave being dug in real time, stone by stone, word by word, suspicion by suspicion. And I cannot help but wonder how many more will be buried before the soil is finally satisfied. The night drapes heavier as I wind my way toward the houses of Salem's judges. The cemetery's whispers still cling to me. The old man's groans still echo in my chest, and yet I press forward, for I know the heart of this hysteria lies not in the grave nor the jail, but in the halls, where justice itself has been twisted into its own specter. The first is the home of Judge John Hathorne, the so-called hanging judge. His windows glow faintly with the light of candle flames flickering against glass warped by age. The house looms severe, a Puritan monument of stern timbers and straight lines, its silhouette slicing the mist. The very air seems to harden as I draw near, thick with a chill that is not of the night, but of the man within. Through the shutters, I glimpse him seated at a table, his shadow cast long across the wall. His face is drawn tight with conviction, his jaw set as though carved from stone. Papers are spread before him, depositions, confessions forced from trembling lips, testimonies of children who writhe and scream. His quill scratches across the parchment, etching verdicts not in ink, but in blood. The candles sputter, shadows dancing across his features. For a fleeting moment, I imagine them not as the play of light, but as the twisting forms of those condemned by his hand, neighbors dangling from gallows, eyes wide with betrayal, mouths slack with disbelief. He does not look up, does not falter. To him, this is not cruelty, but righteous duty. Then a murmur rises from beyond the walls, carried on the damp night air, the recounting of a trial. I edge closer, ears straining. The words are almost unbelievable, yet I know they are real, for they are the very marrow of Salem's madness. She torments me in the night, a voice wails, high and panicked. Her specter claws at my throat. I see her face hovering, though she is not here. Spectral evidence. Claims of invisible torment. Visions no eye, but the accusers could see. In Salem, such claims are not dismissed as madness. They are welcomed as proof. Proof enough to bind wrists, to write warrants, to tighten nooses. Inside, Judge Hathorne nods, his stern visage lit with grim satisfaction. The testimony is accepted, the verdict assured. Reason has been abandoned, replaced by visions and whispers. Lives are condemned not by fact, but by phantoms. My stomach knots, my breath shallow. I know now that no defense exists here. Innocence cannot be proven when guilt is painted in the unseen. To be accused is to be condemned, and to live is to escape by chance, not by justice. I turn from Hathorne's shadow and tread further down the crooked street, where another house rises, heavier still. The Witch House, though it was not yet called so in 1692, bears that name well. Its timbers are thick, dark as char, its windows peering like watchful eyes. This is the home of Judge Jonathan Corwin, who presided over many examinations, his own halls steeped in accusation. The door groans open, and I step into a chamber lit by sputtering lanterns. The air is stale, heavy with damp wood and something sharper. Fear soaked into the very beams. The floorboards creak underfoot, as though they remember the weight of the accused who once stood trembling here. A long table stretches across the room, and on it rest papers, candles, and a single great Bible. Its cover worn, its corners darkened by countless hands. It should be a symbol of truth. Yet here, it feels like a weapon. Every verse bent and twisted to justify the breaking of lives. I close my eyes, and I can see it. A woman dragged before the judges, her skirts torn, her hair tangled, her face streaked with tears. She is told to stand, though her knees buckle. She is told to answer, though every word she utters condemns her further. She is searched for witches' marks, for blemishes that might prove her bond with the devil. Even the simplest birthmark could damn her. "Do you deny the specters?" a voice thunders. I see nothing," she whispers. "Then you lie," comes the reply. She falls silent, for silence is all that remains. The timbers groan as though in sympathy, but the judges do not hear. Their ears are tuned only to fear, their eyes fixed only on guilt. The air presses down in this house, heavier than the stones that crushed the old man. At least the stones were honest in their cruelty. Here, cruelty wears the mask of righteousness. I step back into the night, lungs burning, as though I have been too long without air. The houses of Hathorne and Corwin loom behind me, their lanterns flickering, their shadows stretching long across the street like black fingers clutching at the earth. Salem is not ruled by reason. It is ruled by visions, by whispers, by vengeance given the dignity of law. Justice has been gutted, its carcass paraded through the streets beneath the name of faith. I think again of what I have seen. Neighbors accusing neighbors in the jail, their venom binding them tighter than chains. The old man pressed into the earth, his silence more powerful than any plea. Women dragged to taverns, stripped in search for marks that meant nothing yet cost everything. And now this, judges sitting in candlelight, accepting ghosts as evidence, wielding scripture as a sword, condemning with conviction, unclouded by doubt. The night feels colder now, the mist wrapping tight around my throat. Salem's people walk with their heads low, but their eyes dart, watching, measuring, ready to speak the word that could end another life. And somewhere behind shuttered windows, the judges sleep easy, certain that their work is righteous. But I know what I have seen. Salem is not haunted by witches. It is haunted by its own hunger for fear, its own thirst for blood. And as I walk deeper into the night, toward Gallows Hill, I feel the weight of those halls pressing behind me, the echo of quills scratching, the murmur of visions accepted as truth, the timbers groaning beneath the weight of injustice. The benches of Salem have become gallows themselves, and I know the worst is yet to come. The path to Gallows Hill winds upward like a scar carved into the earth. The mist clings tighter the higher I climb, wrapping around my shoulders like a shroud. Lanterns flicker along the way, bobbing in the hands of villagers who move with grim determination. Their faces are half hidden in shadow, but I can see the hard set of their jaws, the hollowness in their eyes. This is no ordinary gathering. It is pilgrimage, ritual, spectacle. The air itself tightens with expectation, as though even the night waits to see who will swing from the ropes. The hill rises like a dark crown over Salem, its soil already steeped in whispers and fear. A rough wooden beam stretches across two upright posts, crude yet sufficient. From it hang ropes, their loops swaying in the cold night air. They creak with each shift of the breeze, the sound unnervingly alive, as though the ropes themselves hunger. A crowd clusters at the base of the hill, their lanterns casting halos of sickly light. Mothers clutch their children close. Fathers set their jaws as if this act of death were a lesson in discipline. The condemned are led forward, wrists bound, eyes hollow but unbroken. Their steps falter against the slope, but they walk still, pushed onward by guards whose faces are grim masks. One woman whispers a prayer beneath her breath, her lips trembling though her voice is steady. Another man looks skyward, his eyes fixed not on the rope but on the heavens, as though measuring whether mercy lies there. The executioner steps forward, hand steady, his movements rehearsed by repetition. The first rope is fitted, tightened against a neck already bruised by fear. The woman gasps softly but does not resist. The crowd holds its breath, silence descending like a pall. The beam groans as the trap is released. A body jerks, feet scrambling, then stills. The rope creaks, swaying, carrying its terrible song to every ear. A murmur ripples through the crowd, not of outrage, not of pity, but of grim acceptance. Another rope, another neck, another life snapped from the branch of this cursed tree. Each fall of the trap feels heavier, as though the hill itself sinks under the weight of the dead. The lanterns flicker, children whimper, but no one leaves. To witness is to participate, and none dare look away. The executions spill down toward Proctor's Ledge, the rocky outcrop where the condemned are left to dangle against the pale backdrop of the moon. Here, the ropes sway like pendulums, each body a grim marker of Salem's hysteria. The ground beneath my feet feels damp, the soil unsettled, as if it resents the burden pressed upon it. The ledge juts outward, stark and unforgiving, its stone face bathed in shadows, that seem to cling to the bodies above. I stand among the crowd, but apart from it. My breath catches as I look upon the row of swaying figures, men, women, neighbors once greeted in the marketplace, now reduced to warnings in flesh. Their faces, distorted in death, seem almost to stare at me, as though begging me to carry their story forward. The crowd does not weep. Some bow their heads in prayer. Others cross their arms, their mouths tight with what they call justice. But justice has no place here. Only fear. Only vengeance disguised as piety. It is then that I feel it, the shift. At first subtle, like a breeze against the back of my neck. Then stronger, heavier, eyes, dozens of them turning toward me. A murmur begins at the edge of the crowd, words too low to catch, yet sharp enough to pierce. Whispers snake through the air, curling around me like smoke. Strange man. An outsider. Look how he watches. Their suspicion grows, fanned by the very hysteria they've birthed. To them, my silence is not reverence, but secrecy. My observation is not mourning, but evidence. In their eyes, to stand apart is to align with the devil himself. A child points. A mother pulls him close, her gaze narrowing on me. A man mutters to his neighbor, nodding in my direction. Another crosses himself. The air thickens, each whisper sharper, closer. He does not bow his head. He does not pray. Why is he here? The ropes sway above us, and I feel their shadow reach for me. My pulse quickens, the weight of the hill pressing down. For the first time, I understand not just the fear of Salem's accused, but its inevitability. Innocence does not matter here. Reason is not a shield. To be seen is to be suspected. To be suspected is to be condemned. The whispers grow louder, the crowd shifting subtly, bodies angling, eyes fixed. I step back, my boots crunching against the brittle soil. The sound seems too loud, drawing sharper looks, deeper whispers. My throat tightens. If I speak, they will twist my words. If I run, they will chase. If I stay, I may hang beside those already swaying. So I move slowly, deliberately, as though carried by the same current that brought them here. I edge toward the road, each step a prayer unspoken. The whispers follow, pressing against my back, clinging to me like vines. By the time I reach the base of the hill, the crowd's gaze still clings to me. I do not look back, for I know what I would see. Eyes narrowed, lips moving, suspicion taking root. The mist thickens, mercifully wrapping me in its pale embrace. But even as I fade from their sight, I feel the ropes swaying still, creaking in the wind, their song etched forever into my bones. Salem is no longer a town. It is a noose tightened around its own throat, each accusation pulling the rope tauter, each execution choking what life remains. The hysteria has no end, no bottom. It devours neighbor and stranger alike. And tonight, it nearly devoured me. I walk away, but the whispers follow. Salem will haunt me always, not with witches, but with the memory of ropes swaying against a pale sky, and the knowledge that suspicion needs no proof, only a target. The town fades behind me, swallowed by mist, but I know that even now, in the hearts of those who gathered on that hill, the nooses are still swaying. And perhaps, in their whispers, so am I. Rest easy, friends. The rabbit hole of time holds many more slow steps. Until we meet again, Silas is signing off.